need to give like sharing privileges, but if you can let Kay actually be the presenter.
Let me know if you can't present. There should be a little arrow in the top right-hand corner.
I see a share tray and I click on desktop window, right?
Yep. Yeah. You can click on like a certain window if you don't want to share your entire screen. You know what I mean? Like if you just want to share one application, but it's probably easier to just share your entire screen.
I think we're all good. Thank you.
Okay. Perfect. Well, actually, I'll just, since you've been at Soul, Marcus, and kind of know like the culture in the group, I'll just let you give an intro of what you used to do at Soul and how you formed this new venture.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Yeah, I probably know most of you guys on here, or at least we've met a little bit. Was at Soul for a year in a business development manager position on the origination team. Love my time there. Have nothing but good things to say about Soul in general. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. This has always been something kind of on my mind for really kind of the last 7 years or so, building a company that really helps address all of these ecological and sustainability crises simultaneously. And I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where we're starting to do that. And I was able to bring on Kay, who I met back in our time at Solar City and then Tesla, who has a lot of experience actually with startups out on the West Coast originally and scaling a few different companies. So brought him in and yeah, things have been going really well so far. So I think what we'll do today, we do have a presentation prepared. We'll give you just a little background on the company, how it kind of came to be. I'll tie in some of my experience at Soul and a lot of the things that I've learned there that I've been able to apply. And then just kind of tell you, where we're at now, give you an overview of the different kind of divisions and offerings we have, and then open it up for sort of like an engaging second half discussion on some things that we all can do individually. And I just, want to open it up to see where everybody's at, individually. I think, with this many people, we can probably do like the hand raising thing for, and I really would love a lot of engagement just to get a sense of where everybody's at, and just being part of the sustainability task force still, and back when I was at Soul, but still being part of it, has been inspiring to see how many people really are passionate about this, in Soul, and people who obviously, it's a snapshot of a company that is in the sustainability space, so, not necessarily an exact representation of like the general population, but it's inspiring always to hear about all the stuff that other people are already doing. So yeah, I think, Kay, if you want to start the presentation, if you want to say a couple words, and then we can get started on that.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. Yeah, it's such an honor and a privilege to be here, everyone. I've kind of overheard a few of the calls that Marcus has had with the STF, and of course, I know a lot about his time at Soul System. So it's nice to catch up with some familiar faces like Adam, and to hopefully get to know the rest of you all as our time goes on today, and hopefully in the future. So I'll go ahead and share my screen now. Let's see here. All right. Do you guys see everything okay? Just wanted to make sure here. Okay, cool. Let me put this in presentation mode. All right. So when Marcus brought me to Sustainable You, a big part of the culture that I wanted to bring was a culture of asking questions. And this question has always been close to my heart, and to many of the people that we've talked to has really allowed an open, engaging evolution of the conversation of sustainability at hand. So why is the world the way it is? When we sit on this and hear this and look at these words, different things come to different people. And for us, what it brings up is, well, in terms of sustainability, we have quite a few challenges. We have a lot of tasks at hand to really address to build a more beautiful world that we know is possible here. And perhaps it's because we're struggling because it's the intention or lack of our behavior, of how we show up, the consciousness that we collectively hold and individually carry. We found that as we change the behavior of one person, the collective behavior changes. our journey at Sustainable You has come to one purpose that we like to articulate. And that purpose is that we awaken people to their power of evolving a sustainable consciousness. And it's a very, very lofty thing sometimes for people to hear. And it's every time I read this or say it or hear it, I think to myself, wow, this is a big mission that we have. This is a big outcome. And what does this even mean? What does evolution mean? What does awakening mean? What does a sustainable consciousness mean? And we found that there's no better way to speak to this than to understand and expand upon our own stories, empower others to evolve into theirs and share theirs. So with that being said, Marcus, let's hear from yours.
Sure. And, honestly, I think this story kind of ties into a lot of folks that I know and may even resonate with, a place that many of you are at a different point in your life. And really, the company morphed as a product of my own awakening and my own sustainability evolution. And it's something that I feel like if I can do it, and if I can be so inspired every day to wake up and try to be better, then I think pretty much everybody else can too, if given the right information. And so, the way that the idea came up for Sustainable You was actually back when I was working for Tesla, and even really before that. I was trying to just figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I graduated college. I went to Europe and backpacked around, just trying to figure out, what is it that I want to do? What do I want to focus, the rest of my professional life on? Came to the realization that I would love to professionally work in something that I was personally passionate about and try to find a way to bridge the gap between my own personal life and passions with what I'm going to be spending the next 40 plus years, full time, 40 plus hours every single week doing. And, in my research, came to the realization that there are really all of these various ecological crises that are happening simultaneously. And, the more I learned about it, the more documentaries I watched, the more I read about it, the more it scared me to a degree. And I realized that, that was it. I had to do at least my part because, I was now aware of what was going on. And I was beginning to start to wake up to the fact that, I could actually have an impact on that. Whatever that impact was, it was ultimately up to me to try to do my best to maximize what I was able to do. And so that's when I intentionally went and got hired by Solar City with the plan for them to be acquired by Tesla. That's actually something I had projected happening. And I thought that would be my way to get in, work for Elon Musk, who was tackling many of these different problems, from a macro level. And in working there, I learned a lot, got a lot of great guidance, met Jeff Miller and Rob Pierno there, who were really great mentors for me at my time at Tesla. And then realized, I wanted to do more. I wanted to kind of focus back on what my original mission was. And rather than just selling solar, to residences, one at a time, I wanted to try to have a bigger impact and help folks, outside of just solar. I wanted to impact them in all these different ways. And I realized that, we all kind of have a choice. And for the rest of our lives, we're going to be spending a lot of energy and effort on our professional lives. But I feel like there's this secondary thing that is kind of mounting in really civilization at large, where we have this choice on all of our actions for the rest of our lives can either continue to entrench us in our existing ways, or we can start to push to build a more sustainable future that everybody can thrive in. And that's really, what I modeled Sustainable You after. And I think, for many folks that I've met, people have their own sustainability passions, and whether it's the ocean or whether it's the air or water quality or what have you, I think it's important. The way that I view this is everybody can sort of have a passion project. It's either on the side or with all of you guys, it's actually front and center with the work that you're already doing. We have the choice to build that more sustainable future together, and ultimately, sure, there's some validness to the macro problems that we face, and that, these top companies are the biggest polluters, and if it weren't for them, we would be okay. But the reality is, it's up to all of us. All of our choices are what allow these companies to exist in their unsustainable way that they've manifested, and it's up to us to drive that shift. And ultimately, the most successful way to do that, I think, is personally to make a shift and try to live as sustainable as you can. So I went vegan over 5 years ago. I now have an electric vehicle and solar. And, whenever I buy something, I think really hard, do I really need that thing? And then if I do a little bit of research, which has gotten easier and easier to figure out what's a sustainable option. What is the most sustainable choice, within reason for everything. So that kind of led me to actually to Soul Systems, because I thought that one of the biggest things I could do was do solar on a much larger scale, because you're actually having direct impact in terms of the decarbonization of our economy. And actually, if you scale up renewables, it's my firm belief that you can solve a lot of these other crises. You can desalinate more water, and you can use solar as a way to give the land a break and actually recover. And if you do it intentionally, there's all these things that we can do. And so I had the hard choice of, I had started Sustainable You about 6 months before I actually joined Soul Systems. And I realized that I needed help if I was going to be able to do both. And that's when I really reached out to Kay. From my past experiences, I knew he would be able to really kind of take this to another level. And I kind of handed the torch to him to run things while I was spending, most of my time at Soul. And I also wanted him to help me build an app, which we actually were able to create the Sustainable You app, which is still like minimally viable product MVP stage. But we're really excited about, where that app's going, and its functionality is really great right now. And it serves as sort of a backdrop to all of these different offerings and all of these different partnerships that we've curated. So, Kay, if you want to say a couple words about your story in here, and then we can do the next one.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. And yeah, something I found that was interesting about knowing Marcus and meeting him back at Tesla, and then leaving that world, I was like, man, I really, really, really don't want to go back into solar. That was just my personal thing at the time when he approached me. I was like, and he basically sold me on the idea of something bigger, right? It sold me on the idea of a platform and an application that's really just the tactical arm to really speak to this kind of three-pronged process, right? To help people wake up to whatever story they really want to create for themselves versus being in their, status quo lives, and making the hard and easy choices, just having that shift really be sustained, and for everybody to find their summon. For me, with my background in coaching and just starting and scaling companies, it was really a perfect fit. And that's where we came to kind of evolve a collective purpose statement that Marcus and I evolved together in terms of awakening people to their power of evolving the sustainable consciousness. And the question was, how do we host that? How do we engage that purpose, that mission with the everyday person? So from there, the app took a lot of work. We had to spend, almost all the hours in the day working on it day in and day out to get ready for launch. And right now it's, like Marcus is saying, it's functional, it's working. The idea is there, the functionality is there to really connect people with the greater community of sustainable companies like ours, like Soul, and like so many just around the world and locally here, where people can actually get rewarded for being sustainable. It's not just a thing anymore that people have to strive for. And sure, it's still a mountaintop that we have to climb as a collective society here. And it's also a personal mountain that we get to figure out and evolve together. And our solution has kind of come forth in the form of really vetting and curating companies that have products and services that are immediately impactful and long-term impactful to sustainable growth. From there, our interesting approach is that we don't just do that, but we actually have a hands-on approach to actually consult the people that we work with and actually coach them as well on two sides of that spectrum, and just provide the actual service as well as provide the growth of that person as they evolve their personal sustainable lifestyle, which is all hosted as we grow on this evolving Sustainable You app, where they get constant rewards and recommendations and a community they can really connect with that's separate from any other social media or platform that people are familiar with. And finally, and the final difference and kind of cool thing that we're up to here is that we don't just vet and curate or even consult and coach, but we also manage and deliver on these solutions, whether it be solar or permaculture gardens or the coaching process itself with actual reporting and accountability structures. And a lot of things that we've been up to recently in the past year or so is larger projects where we're looking to build community Marcus, you want to expand here?
Sure. I think you were cutting out for me. I'm not sure if it was for everybody else just at the end there. But just to expand on, what is it that we're vetting and curating, and what is our focus right now? So DC, as you guys are all keenly aware of, the SREC market is the best in the country right now. And it's something that actually allows homeowners to make a profit when they go solar. So what we've been doing is, rather than vertically integrating and doing the install portion of solar, we've actually been vetting the marketplace and figuring out who are all the different residential install providers and what do they specialize in. What is really their quality of workmanship? What are their pricing? So one way that we've differentiated ourselves is, rather than housing one product and selling that and explaining why that's the best, we're actually continually refining and figuring out who does have the best offering depending on the customer circumstance. So we start with the customer circumstance and situation and what they're looking for, and then we curate and figure out who is the best solution for them, and then we'll actually manage that project. So we do that with solar, we do that with permaculture designs, and we do that with helping the greater sustainable DC plan actually get out to people, whether it's helping people with composting or install rainwater collectors at their homes. And just to touch on a couple examples of some projects that we've done in this area, I'll start left to right. The far left project is actually a new build. It's in Tacoma Park, Maryland, but it's on the DC feeder line. So the solar actually ended up being a source that allowed funding for some of the other parts. But this home is actually going to be LEED Platinum certified. Pretty much everything, the homeowner who's buying it is really awesome. He's a professor at Maryland and really cares about sustainability. So from the materials in the piping in the home, all the way to the efficiency of the windows, the grade of the insulation. We added solar on it. And then the exciting part is this is going to be our first large scale permaculture design and implementation. So all of the landscape around the house, he's actually brought us in to help him design it in an ecological and sustainable way with different local plants and water retention and various things to help really sequester carbon into the soil and at the same time increase the nutrient density in the soil, which will allow him to actually grow more food. The second one next to that is actually downtown DC. It's a New York Ave Presbyterian Church. Coincidentally, two of their board members at the church were separately customers of mine. One's in DC, one's in Virginia, that went solar with us on their homes and had such a great experience that they actually brought us in to do solar for their church. So that's a project we just installed a couple weeks ago. The third one is actually our very own Gabe Wubin's system. So we just installed that a few weeks back as well. That's just like the top part of his system. It's there's like 4 different sections to it. So yeah, if you guys have questions, you can ask him. He did go through the process with us. We helped kind of figure out which company would be the best solution for him and help deliver to that project. And then the fourth one is one of the most exciting ones, just because of kind of the story behind it. But that's RS Auto, also in Tacoma Park, Maryland, but also on the DC feeder line. So the community in Tacoma Park is super awake when it comes to this kind of stuff. And actually really hated that there was a gas station in downtown Tacoma. So they a lot of the community members were actually lobbying the owner of this gas station / auto body shop. And they sort of like decided based on that community push to remove their gas tanks entirely and install rapid EV chargers, level 3 EV chargers there. And then we actually installed the solar component on the canopy there, and then also on, which you can't see in this picture, but they have the auto body shop. We installed solar on that as well. So, worked with this person to actually, it's the first gas station in the country to actually remove their gas tanks and switch exclusively to EV chargers, which is exciting to be a part of that project.
Awesome. Thanks, Marcus. And do you want to speak to a little bit here about kind of some of the pieces here on this slide on the red, like some of the challenges we've found as we've tried to do this or have done this for solar, for permaculture, just in general, like what the things we've kind of faced in the past year are?
For sure. Really, I came across a lot of these things over the last 6-7 years, just working in the industry, and certainly a lot more now. They've just been sort of emphasized or highlighted over the last couple years with Sustainable You. But one thing that we noticed is, an inefficiency in the industry at large of trying to build a more sustainable future, whether you have your solar companies or your energy efficiency companies or your EV companies or your farming companies and what have you. Something we've noticed is that there's way too many silos in the industry. I feel like everybody gets so bogged down with like the stress and like all the stuff that you have to do, and the fact that it's pretty hard to be successful in this space. It's increasingly becoming easier as more and more people are starting to care about this, and there are more subsidies in place. But we've noticed that there's been this like kind of creation of silos even within the industry, and people are kind of forgetting that the whole reason that they're doing that, the reason they started that company was for a greater good and for like the future of folks. And so what we've tried to do is completely build a model that is completely going to solve or try to solve some of these silos that have been created in the workforce. And so we've created a partnership model rather than us trying to do everything vertically integrated and saying we do it better than everybody else. We actually want to help prop up all the great companies that are doing good work in their different sectors and help bridge the divides and those silos so that we can all work together under one platform so that a customer can work with us, but really they end up working with 20 different companies or 20 different brands as they evolve their sustainable lifestyle and start to implement more choices. And I think these silos have caused sort of this level of market distrust. You get like solar companies, bashing the other companies, and like I feel like that happens to all these industries. It's we're fighting one another for the customer rather than coming together to get that customer to do even more and to help empower that customer to feel good about that choice. From the buying standpoint, if you have 5 different quotes and everybody is saying bad things about everybody else, like you're less likely to have a person happy about going forward. So what we've done is we've created a growing community of referrals and happy customers that once we've delivered these solutions, we encourage them to share it with their community members. And then I think because of those first 2 things, it's created this like inaccessibility. There's too much noise, if you will, out there, which makes it, it's difficult for somebody to adopt. They want to be more sustainable, but they don't really know where to start, and they're so busy in their daily lives, so they don't know which company to go with. So what we've created is we want to make this as easy as possible, and by bringing people together and creating a community of people that are evolving in their journey, and also focusing on companies that give back or give a reward to the person for being more sustainable. We've helped to address the inaccessibility and make it a lot more accessible.
Yeah, thank you, Marcus. And another piece to this too, and a lot of the recent talks we've had with the DOE here in DC is on the piece of equity too, and really the access that, that's just not there for a lot of folks in the city itself, and how there's so much distrust in general, not just with the specific, solar market or just people not understanding how regenerative agriculture or growing food in your backyard is totally possible and very fruitful, pun intended. It's just people don't know where to start and they don't know who to trust. And it's interesting that we found in our recent talks with the DOE that they haven't found any, larger, sustainable success with a lot of their immediate grants that they put out in the past few years, or implementation with the right types of companies to really address the greater whole of DC, on an individual basis or on an organizational basis. So what we found is that a lot of our traction is perfectly modeled to kind of weave into the greater goals that the district has to really implement a larger, community here that's resilient, and not just one home or even one neighborhood or block of DC, but the whole city at large, where the city can say that, wow, we have all these companies doing all these things, and where we come in is in the curation of that. And we have all these individuals and their families and friends talking about all these things they've adopted, from solar to growing food to evolving their own personal lives, and being excited about that because they're rewarded on an intangible level from their personal growth, but also very tangibly, whether it's benefiting from the solar incentives or being able to grow their own food for a lot cheaper and a lot healthier. It's a big piece of the traction we found as an organization. And every time we speak to an individual or a larger group that wishes to partner with us, things just kind of mesh right in place, because a lot of people on a consumer level and on a business level are starting to see the pain of these silos and the lack of trust and inaccessibility. So we're really just here as a platform that we're facilitating for the greater evolution of the collective community. So recognizing that, where do we start? Where does anybody start? So our core offering is a place of introspection. Our eco-evaluation, as we call it, brings up sustainability lifestyle coaching. It brings up who we are as a person and thinking about who we want to be. So these 3 questions here I'll kind of expand upon. And as we kind of go through this, I'll unshare this presentation, kind of open it up for discussion a little bit, that's facilitated. But to think about this first one, where are you at right now in your life? Usually this also comes up with a few different answers from people. It's like, oh man, I'm stressed with this, or I'm really thinking about finishing this project, or I really need a vacation, or I'm going on a vacation. All types of feelings and emotions come up for people immediately. If you take a look at it in the lens of sustainability, there's usually some thoughts that come out around things that maybe somebody's tried, failed at, or succeeded at. And that leads into the next question. Where are you going? A lot of people look at that in a positive lens, right? Of where am I going with my life? Who am I becoming? What am I doing with my family, my profession, my greater community? Where am I going? And the other side of this question also allows us to think about and reflect about, if we stay at the place we are at right now, where we're going is probably going to be exactly where we're at, unless we awaken to some different choices, right? Unless we make different choices, we're going to have the same results of our life that we've been choosing, right? For however many years we've been around. So it's a reflection on really who we want to be and who we want to evolve to become, to make an impact for ourselves, our family, and our greater community. And of course, sustainability is the big lens. That's one of the most important things that we can reflect on in our current times. The last piece here really speaks to who we are together. Because we found in our expansion of everything as an organization, as people, that the individual choice, the individual contribution is so valuable. Sure, there are huge goals like the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and there's so many companies doing ESG analyses and looking at how organizations can grow. But they all are comprised of individual people. And so when we realize this, the value and the power and the potential of further empowerment of the individual, we get to also say, if we come together, where are we together? And if we're living the same way we are right now, the status quo right now in the world, right now in our lives, where are we at together? And where are we going? Versus if each one of us makes simple changes in our lives, whatever they may be, and maybe those simple changes evolve to deeper changes and long-term changes, and maybe we even get involved for our communities and become evangelists or ambassadors of our specific sustainable passions, whatever they are. Where could we really be together? So recognizing that, we want to open it up. I'm going to unshare my screen here if I can find the Microsoft Teams thing. Here we go. And just want to open it up to a few people. Any thoughts on those questions? Anything one or two people want to share about that? Got a hand here from Nathan.
Yeah, hey, thank you guys. This is a great presentation. And really impressive. Some of the points you guys made, I totally agree with the kind of where do you start type of mentality. There's something I mentioned to Marcus, and do I start by looking at like one aspect of my life or my day-to-day routine? Is it just going for the biggest bang for your buck in terms of like sustainability? And they're really kind of sometimes for people that are particularly in tune to these sort of issues and concerned about sustainability and the path that kind of the planet's going on. There can come some real stress to that. Like, do I off every light when I'm not in the room? Do I save up to just get solar on my rooftop? Do I need to switch to an EV like immediately? Because there's day-to-day realities and financial implications for trying to head in this direction. So I'm curious, in your guys' experience, kind of alleviate some of the stress, but also still feel good about kind of making forward progress.
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. I'll speak to that first, and I actually have an example to kind of expand upon that stress and that feeling of gosh, there's so many things that once you awaken to this, and everybody on this meeting is kind of ahead of the curve, right? And living a life and working with an organization that is making a huge impact. There was an eco-evaluation that I facilitated for one of our great customers who has solar as well. And what came up was they really want to get better at food waste. They realized that they bought a lot of food. They had an addiction pretty much. They admitted this to just buying food and just buying it and storing it and throwing it away, mainly, and they didn't know why. And so through this kind of process, and we won't go deep too much into like the coaching frameworks, but through a little bit more of a process, you were able to uncover that they had an awakening around like, whoa, they literally in the call, they're like, wait a minute, oh my God, I just realized that when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of money. My family was really poor. So we always bought food in bulk. We always wanted to get as much food as possible, no matter what. And those habits of eating a lot of junk food, a lot of bulk food, and just not really choosing to be conscious about healthy food habits or just sustainable habits in terms of buying food or growing it and cultivating themselves, they had this big like, oh my gosh. And then from there was a switch. There was a choice. I think I asked a direct question. I was like, is this something you're looking to change? And they were like, oh my God, yes. Now I'm feeling kind of stressed out and kind of traumatized almost that I realized that I have this kind of conditioning from when I was younger that leads to this tangible thing happening where I waste food. I don't want to do that anymore. And their spouse actually was on the call. And he was like, oh my God, this would be so amazing. We'd save so much money. You'd feel so much happier. You'd be so much healthier. Like all these things came up from that. And so what I found in my experience for this piece of the eco-evaluation, it's evolving a sustainable consciousness, right? And the coaching is very much around the consciousness, is that our greatest stressors, our greatest weaknesses, our greatest challenges become our greatest successes, become our greatest strengths, become our greatest evolutions. So that's kind of an anecdote in a way to kind of speak to what this kind of leads to, this greater eco-evaluation. So thank you, Nathan, for that question.
Yeah, and to elaborate a little bit on that to speak to that. Like I definitely felt it, and I think it's something that maybe ignorance is bliss to a degree. Like it maybe is a dissuader from people going too far down the path of like stressing themselves out with all these problems. I think one thing that I try to focus on in general is that we're all lucky to be here. A lot of things have gotten better in society. People are living longer. Food is more accessible. There's all these like great like luxuries that we have created and that we have. And the more and more you look at like how bad we've been treating the planet and all of these things, yet we're still here and we're still kind of okay, to me is a huge opportunity to, wow, well, how good can things actually be if we all are more intentional? And I think it's important not to like, it's sustainable steps towards progress, right? Like figure out like what those couple things that you can start to do and then try to do them and use them as a source of inspiration. To me, it comes back to something like physical, like composting, or even now that I'm actually like growing food, it's kind of magical when you like intentionally reconnect with nature and you think of your land, the area of space that you have that you're accountable for, as your connection to the natural world, and you start to live that way. I get inspired by that, and it feels really good just to like plant seeds. And to be honest, like it's not something I had done for a long time. And when I plant seeds, I'm like, how is this going to work? This just doesn't seem like it's going to work. It seems really difficult. Like I probably got the combination of soil wrong or something like that. And then like magically the seeds grow and they come up, and the compost magically turns from rotting trash into like good smelling rich soil. And it's like pretty mind-blowing to me. But I think that's a simple thing that we can all kind of do, that's almost a form of meditation, where we're like intentionally reconnecting with our natural world by thinking of the land that we're responsible for as our inlet to that connection. And I think just that shift, and like, wow, it's not I gotta mow the grass and this kind of sucks that I have to take care of it. It's like, wow, what can I do with my land to really reconnect with Mother Earth? And I feel like that alone is not stressful. It's like the opposite of stress, and it's a way to be more sustainable, and it's a way to inspire further action in a way where it's like you see tangible results right away, and it's like, wow, if everybody did this, like we actually do have the keys, to the solution right here in front of us. We just need to start. And so I think the key is to start and feel good about the things that you're doing and share those things, with other folks. And it will inspire you as you see other people do some of the stuff that you've done too.
Thanks, Marcus. And I'm going to share my screen again and share a snippet of our website here that kind of speaks to a little bit more of the framework of what we're talking about here in the eco evaluation. Marcus, you want to expand on this?
Sure. So we're in the process of still building like the e-booklet and the kit, although we really kind of have the kit designed. We just haven't like sourced all the products. Kind of part of like we're looking to get like a grant and some funding, and if we do, we can get like the kits in mass and be able to facilitate that. But really, like you can curate your own kit, because a lot of people have a number of the things that would come in a sustainability kit, and it doesn't make sense to redundantly buy things you already have anyways, even if it's in the name of sustainability. It's really, what are the things that would be in a typical kit, which things do you already have, and then what are the gaps? So it's better to actually kind of curate that as a custom solution. But yeah, I kind of created this framework, and obviously I call it the evolving blueprint, because it's not the blueprint that you follow and will all be great. It's constantly evolving. I'm constantly learning new things, and there's partners that know so much more than me about various components that can help me to do this. But okay, if you scroll down a bit just to the sections, what I've done is I've actually categorized different parts of our own lives that have a sustainability component to it, or a carbon component to it. So I think it helps to just structure and organize like your own life into, because if you just think of how can I be more sustainable, and you just think of all these million things in different areas, and it kind of becomes overwhelming. But if you just create a framework and structure it into different sections, I think it really does help it to be less daunting, and for you to identify where are you passionate about, what are some things you're already doing good, and be happy about those things, and where are the biggest weaknesses or gaps in your own journey, and which ones have you tried and why did you fail, and like working with a partner that can help you kind of facilitate that is really helpful. So thinking about like the energy sources in your life and the transportation, and then your diet is really key. It's one of the most important things that is within our control. But diet is also difficult in a sense, because it's one of the most like rooted in tradition. And it's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing that we all grew up doing. You have to eat to survive. So it's very entrenched since childhood. The things that have sustained our own lives are really near and dear to our heart. So I think it's a difficult one, but I get a lot of inspiration out of my change. My transition with food was about as far as you can possibly transition, from how heavy I was eating meat and how I was unaware of really that mattered, to now I know it's one of the most important things in terms of our carbon footprints as an individual choice. And it inspires me. I feel good, and taste buds shift, and now food tastes better and I appreciate it more than I ever used to. And I think that's a healthy relationship to grow in your own life. And then furthermore, there's consumer brands. So every time you need to make a purchase or think you need to make a purchase, I think it's always good to second guess that. Be like, do I really need this thing? And then if you do, or you really want that thing and it's going to bring you happiness, I think that it's okay. And just try to vote with your dollar, because here is how we have our own impact on the economy, driving the large companies to fall in line with what's necessary to create that sustainable future. In that same sense, like consumption, I actually, it's about your intention, like, the things that you're choosing to do if you're not being as wasteful. And then investments is really key. But I think under consumption too, sort of like, you're voting with your dollar, but also physically voting, taking the time on local elections to figure out who actually cares about sustainable things that you're passionate about, and get involved. Make them, if enough of us really do get involved, not just like care about it, but like actively, lobby for it or do something about it, these politicians will start to pass policy. If 80% of the people in this country demanded a carbon tax, like, that would happen. The politicians would follow their constituents, and it would happen. It's just, I think a lot of people are waking up to that would be really helpful, but aren't really actively pushing it out there. Kind of persisting and living the way that we are in mass is sort of allowing these companies to continue to make plastic bottles, Coca-Cola and whatnot. If we stopped boycotting it, they would shift immediately. The technologies are there to do it. But investments are key too, especially with folks who have built money, and especially if you're talking to like the oldest generation that still hold on to the majority of the wealth. If they started shifting their investments and even their money that's in their bank accounts to a bank that doesn't, loan out money to fossil fuels, or and really just like create the world by voting with your wallet and by investing in the world that you want to see come to fruition. And frankly, if everybody does that, your investments are really, really going to pay off. If you get in early to this like green shift, then like you all are, with your day job anyways, but also doing your investments, I think that's key. And that's something that we do have offerings on. I helped curate a sustainable fund with a friend of mine who owns and manages an investment firm. And then there's a company called Aspiration Bank that's really great, and I've created an account with them. So there's these really simple things that we can do within each of these categories. And I don't know if we mentioned it yet, but for all of you guys that are watching this and anybody at Soul, if you're interested in doing an eco evaluation, going through this framework and uncovering what your own goals are and the things that you want to focus on, and then hearing about some of these specific steps that you can take and brands or solutions that you can adopt in your own life. We are offering it for free for anybody at Soul. That's just something we want to do. It is like something we charge about $100 for, but that'll be more like once we have like the e-booklet and everything. But for you guys, it's a free offering. So just follow up with myself or Kay after the meeting and let us know if anybody's interested in having like a one-on-one. It would either be with Kay or myself, or we have one team member that would be able to facilitate that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Marcus. And I'm going to share my screen again here and bring us to last few things as we wrap up our talk for today.
I just put a question in the chat.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if it was seen. I was just wondering how you typically balance supporting local DC-based groups versus more like national corporate sustainability products.
I can speak to that initially. So I think it depends what industry and what it is that you're really talking about. I think both have different benefits in a sense. If it's food, and I think generally speaking, local is better because it's more community oriented. And I think the more people that are focused on their own communities, the more you actually get a true community that's growing and has an impact and has a voice that's amplified. So I think local is great, but at the same time, I think it's really important that we are supporting the companies that are scaled already and have the capacity and opportunity to transition quickly to having a massive sustainable impact on millions and billions of people, depending on what company you're talking about. So I think I err towards local, but I think I'm wary of folks who automatically count out national brands and companies, because I think they're actually positioned the best to have the greatest, most quick transition towards a sustainable future as well. So I think supporting both is important.
Yeah, and I absolutely resonate with that too. To speak to that as well, there's so many nuances in one, scaling a business and dealing with partnerships. Two, of how to communicate those things to the consumer. And three, most importantly, what would have the most valuable impact, right, for sustainable initiatives and goals. And it's kind of interesting, like thinking about, I moved us to this slide here because it kind of speaks to how we're growing too as an organization and how we kind of think about how we want to grow with partners, right? Partners in terms of who we recommend and whether they're affiliate national companies like Aspiration Bank, or they're a local firm that installs solar or helps landscape, edible gardens, right, in somebody's backyard. Something that we've kind of are constantly evolving is, Marcus and I have constant conversations about our partners and have the setting up diligent frameworks and processes to analyze, okay, what is really the important things we're looking for here? What makes the best impact for somebody? And it's so nuanced where that's where we're kind of modeled as a consultancy firm. And to kind of segue into, this piece here, we're in an interesting situation because we're a little bit of a tech company, right, with the app. We're a little bit of a consultancy here where we kind of have a big picture approach to helping people and individuals and organizations, and a lot of other things too, as we kind of do all these things. So a lot of people are like, well, how are you guys going to really scale this, right? Because it's kind of just in your heads right now and a growing small team. But it's really these big three, and then kind of the fourth one on the other side there. I'll let Marcus speak to a little bit more, but the big three for me and in my experience starting and scaling companies, I've never been a part of something like this before that's so close to my heart. But it's kind of interesting that it's the core stuff still, but a little bit different. Like the partners that we're looking for in terms of investors or people that can help us with grants, whether it's working with the DOE or whatever entities on a not-for-profit level. It's such a nuanced piece where we want to find the people that understand the culture that we have around a sustainable consciousness, and really understanding not just that piece and the value of inspiration and a behavior change, but also have the acumen to actually implement these things and manage a business. Which is why as well, like we've kind of had an approach of being very open about people wanting to join the team, and people kind of flow in and out on different capacities, working with us from revenue to marketing to operational stuff. And moving forward, we're really looking to source and find some key people to really help us do this, because similar to our position or perspective on how we accomplish these huge challenges that we face as a collective world, we need a bunch of people with different perspectives from different backgrounds with different expertise to really scale all the things we're doing. Like Marcus and I have a lot of experience in solar. I have a good bit in permaculture and coaching. And both me and Marcus have a good bit of experience in commercial relationships and doing these projects, but we don't know it all. And we're looking to find the right people to really help us do this and join our team, and then grow, and scale with all these parts being managed in the right way. So amidst all this, to kind of expand on the question a little bit more, sometimes an investor like Sequoia, right, a big player might be better. Sometimes a local grant for $10,000 to do a big project for a church might be the better play. It really depends on what the best impact might be for us and our greater community of people. And we constantly have an approach of asking our customers, really maintaining our relationships and having them help us, really asking for help to see where we can really evolve as neighbors together.
Yeah, and I just, since we're kind of at the end here, we only have a few minutes. I wanted to focus on some of the questions that were in the chat. So I think the first one I see was from Nate about the bottom line of the switch from at RS Auto. So I think the majority of their income was from the auto body shop anyways. So I think that allowed them to do it a little bit more easily. I would imagine, and I haven't gotten granular with, and I will actually follow up just to get a sense of it. I think it was more of a long-term play, and they didn't expect it to be more profitable right away than the gas was. So my inkling is that right now it is a little bit less profitable. They're making probably less revenue off of it. That being said, the solar is free because it's on the feeder line. So if but if they're getting a lot of charges, the solar is not covering all of that. So I think probably less profitable now, but it's a play for the future where hopefully as more and more adoption and electrification of the transportation sector, they're now positioned in a very good location for a lot of people to start to use it. And I think it's always in line with what your community wants as a business decision. And then I think we addressed Jill's question, yeah. And then Pedro asked if we do electric heat pumps for home heating and cooling. We do have a partner called Making Air Right, where they do very energy efficient heating and HVAC systems. So as part of that LEED certified home that we're doing the permaculture stuff, I helped consult a little bit with the developer on doing geothermal. So there's actually geothermal heating and cooling in the house as well. So yeah, we have to those kinds of things for sure.
Yeah, great questions, guys. And yeah, just to wrap this up, I mean, I don't know if this can go over or not. We're open for questions or anything now or in the future. The last thing I had, just some touches on for people that are interested in learning more and want more information about what we're up to. The best way is probably to follow us on Instagram and fill out the link on our website to kind of join our newsletter. A lot of the key featured things that might be of value to everybody listening. We had a lot of content we put out for Earth Month all of last month, and then a pretty robust roundtable panel that I facilitated with about 20 or so sustainable organizations around the DMV and the Baltimore metro area as well. Similarly, I think, Jill, you mentioned a question about the podcast and Project Drawdown. It's about, I think, an hour and a half podcast with our team that really reflects upon our reading of Project Drawdown and our approach, and brings a lot of, tangible, implementation conversations, as well as like consciousness conversations around somebody's personal impact and a greater, collective impact with, of course, something like Project Drawdown, as well as we put out a content piece on Medium around the story of plastic and segueing into a larger shift in behavior, for notes of that documentary. So those are kind of some key things. There will be a link in this slide as well for people that are interested. I can send this to Jill and she can send it out to anybody that wants to click on these links as well. Of course, just feel free to reach out to Marcus or myself. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this. It's so great to be able to do these things, and it's always fun to, we, as time goes on, like we're noticing like, wow, we keep saying the same thing. We go through our stories and we talk about this. It's so exciting every time. It never gets boring to me because we're so passionate what we do. So if there's any questions, I don't know how long we have, but any other questions, I think we're happy to stay on a little bit more.
I actually could jump, but I just wanted to say thank you so much again. This is really great. And yeah, it's really exciting to hear about it.
Cool. Thanks everybody for joining. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is awesome. I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you, Marcus.
Me too.
Bye.
Hey, Jill, did you happen to send out this invite list?